Hi, I'm Mitra Sorrells here in the PhocusWire studio at Phocuswright Europe, and I am joined by Mark Blutstein. He is one of our consumer research analysts at Phocuswright and just got off the stage with a great presentation about digital assistants, so we're going to talk about some of that a little bit more. There's a lot happening with mobile and digital.
Yeah, every time you open a newspaper or a news channel, Google's announcing something, Facebook, Amazon. Everyone seems to want to know what's next with them.
Yeah, so one of the things that I heard you talk about a bit, and I know I've heard a lot about, is this idea that with mobile and digital assistants, it creates some new opportunities for brands, really, doesn't it, as opposed to the way things used to operate in travel?
Yeah, mobile kind of changed the interface. It's no more where you kind of need to search for everything. If you have a company's app, it kind of means you're willing to get information from them. And travelers we've surveyed are receptive to it, as long as you don't inundate it with them, as long as it means something to them. So in travel sense, if I booked my trip to Amsterdam here and then you send me stuff to do in Amsterdam, that means something to me. Don't send me things for Hawaii. That's what travelers don't want.
Right. That makes sense. And what about the idea of a more proactive engagement? I was thinking about, it seems like in past times, it was much more one way. Brands sort of sat back, waited for the travelers to reach out to them, to book a flight, to search a hotel, that sort of thing. Now there's that opportunity for the more proactive engagement.
Definitely. Travelers now, at least, they think about trips more often. We see that in our research. And then if you just look at the technology of social media, every time you go on, like a picture is basically enticing you to take a trip at times. So if brands can kind of see that and use that, travelers will generally come to them as long as you're a well-known and trusted brand. So I definitely think that's the move in Asia. That's definitely the way things already go. But in terms of the US and Europe, that's the next wave. If we look at Generation Z, millennials, that's kind of like what they're into.
Yeah, speaking of the Asia piece, I mean, your statistics were pretty startling there as the difference in adoption. Yeah. Why do you think that is? It
really has to just do with the ownership of the device. In China and a lot of Asian markets, getting a PC wasn't something anyone grew up with. They didn't have them in their home, and if they did, they were older or more wealthier. So it's kind of, when you introduce them a smartphone and you say this goes online and this is all the stuff you could do online, why not do it? There's nothing you need to change. Humans don't like changing habits very often. That's why when we look at generational things, generations tend to usually do the same thing, maybe some percentage change, but we're ingrained in our habits, so they didn't have those. So.
Well, and I heard on one of the earlier presentations, Eric from Klook mentioned that 70% of their bookings happen on mobile and 50% of them are booked in destination. So, I guess that's also because nowadays you don't have to, I'm thinking about when I came to Amsterdam for this trip, in past years I probably would have done a lot of research ahead of time, I might have looked up directions, all of that. There's more of that immediate, I want it now.
Gratification, yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of goes into the idea that we live in a connected age. Getting Wi-Fi, you can get it in cities develop it, hotels have it, and everyone kind of already travels with their smartphone. So I think that adds a little more spontaneity now that people are willing to kind of just do it in destination. If you don't give someone Wi-Fi, they're really going to get mad at you. If you're a hotel or an event center, they want it, and they want to be connected. It's discovery, and especially in Asia, 70%, that sounds about right. It's probably lower here in Europe and in the US, but I think that will grow as we start seeing the younger generations venture out.
Now, what about the difference between using it for that research and inspiration piece versus the booking? Because that's still a bit of a divide, correct?
Yeah, in Europe and in the US, you still have the mobile booking percentages, so they're fairly low compared to Asia, not even 50%. And that's kind of still where it's a big purchase, and any large consumer purchase, people have reservations, and this is a small device, maybe I'm missing something out, so they kind of feel like, let me do this in a place where I'm comfortable, in my house, and I can open up multiple windows, which some phones can do and some can't, so we definitely see that. But every year we see it's growing. The percentage of US consumers who book on mobile grew this year, the percentage of Europeans who booked grew last year, and it's because older travelers are driving that. So if they're able to now kind of hop on board this mobile booking, I think it'll keep on growing, and it's the travel industry has done a great job with it, so I don't see it going anywhere.
I wonder if that, I'm thinking about myself personally, just punching in, let's say, a credit card number or something like that on my tiny little device sometimes is cumbersome. So does it also have to do with getting to a point where some of that is more saved in a system? Maybe it's more of a one-click purchase type of thing to facilitate that.
Yeah, I mean, that's how kind of like why Hotel Tonight took off with one-day bookings. They got rid of that. Amazon has why do they do well on mobile kind of? They save your information, and a lot of companies do that. And then now with Chase Pay, Google Pay, Apple Pay, that saved information makes it that much frictionless on the mobile phone. And no one ever thought it was that difficult to put it in, but once you get rid of it, it's like, I never want to do it again.
Right, right. And what about, you also touched on, so with the piece of the mobile device and the development there, then there's that side topic of voice and voice interactions. So tell me a little bit about where you see that going.
So I definitely think it's going to take some time with voice. It's a new medium for many people, not even just travelers, anyone who gets a voice system. There's that learning phase, and how do I learn this device? But after a while, it seems to come natural, especially if you talk to your phone, it kind of frees up your hands so you can use it while you're doing something else. So I see that really taking off, and the ability that it just understands you and can kind of fill in the gaps of what you're saying, instead of you trying to figure out what do I type and sit. And I think it could really grow on us. And we kind of see it a little bit in the interest, not so much the application use in travel, but when you read the newspapers and you watch all the business kind of channels, they show growth every year. More and more people are buying these devices, so there's definitely a space for it within our industry.
Yeah, I know, we've talked to Kayak has some voice products, and Expedia and some others, so it's certainly developing there. I wonder what that does then for the search piece, because of course, when I'm searching online, I may pull up dozens and dozens of results that I'm paging through. With voice, you're getting back what, one or two? And how can those be useful? How do I trust that that's...
How do you trust them? So, I mean, you trust Expedia, Kayak, and Booking.com already, like, to give you something you want. So now it's kind of them building off that personalization. The more times you use, whether their services or you use your device, the device will learn what you like. And it's building that trust with the brand and the device to kind of personalize the options. And we've surveyed kind of in Europe and the US to see kind of like how people feel about personalization. And there are a good percentage of travelers that say, you know what, if you can show me 2 or 3 items that I know I want, I'm okay with that. And they don't need a full list. Because sometimes travelers don't want to look through everything if they don't feel it's right.
Right, right. I was thinking about, let's say, a search on Amazon. I might be searching for an item, and I'm just trusting that Amazon's going to give me back the best results, and I don't really care about brand.
Exactly.
So I start to wonder what that does for brand then in travel. How do you fight to be that 1 or 2 options that gets pushed out?
I think that's one of the, I guess, not debate or fear in the industry. That's a question that we all ask, and it's something we're going to have to kind of like answer together as the years go. It's kind of who is the holder of that information and who's going to come out on top. That's definitely one of the great debates we're going to go through the next year. But I think as far as from the consumer's perspective, they could learn to like it. And honestly, I think the device will more be tailored to the consumer. So if me as a consumer, the device knows where I kind of book very often, like the airlines I use, the hotels, or maybe the type of places I like to stay in. Is it like beachfront in a city or by the water, or like the hidden gems? Like, so the device will eventually learn what I want versus kind of like what maybe the brands want to like pay up for. So I think the device will be more consumer tailored than maybe the internet is right now.
So what about this idea, there's so many opportunities potentially with this little magical device that we all carry around in our pockets. What about this idea of travel brands using it to create an augmented experience in destination? I'd heard about the idea of, you step into the Colosseum in Rome and maybe you hold up your phone and you're able to see the gladiators and that sort of thing. I mean, that's some interesting opportunities.
Augmented reality is very interested in the travel, like the in-destination. There are companies already doing that, where I know one where you can go to like New York and Times Square and experience different things. And we know augmented reality works. We can just look at Pokemon Go, and as long as you just find the right it will definitely take travel way further. You can just assume how it fits into museums, giving you information while you're walking around. So I do see augmented reality as another kind of growth step for the phone, just using its kind of location-based information and then its cameras and different tools it has. So it's a great device.
Yeah, it's all very interesting. Well, great. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time, Mark. I really
Thanks for
appreciate
having me.
it. And thank you so much for watching.